Yeah, we're talking Julian Nagelsmann, aren't we? I can tell you that Chelsea officials have held face-to-face talks with Nagelsmann for the first time as they continue this progression to look for their new manager. There's an awful lot of work going on behind the scenes. And whilst Nagelsmann is very well known to a lot of people in the Chelsea hierarchy, Chris Vivell and Lawrence Stewart, for example, the sporting and technical directors, both worked with him at RB Leipzig. His agency represents Timo Werner, of course, who was at Chelsea as well. Despite all of that, these co-sporting directors that Chelsea have, Stewart and Paul Winstanley, flew to Germany at the end of last week to actually meet and hold face-to-face talks with Julian Nagelsmann. Tom Roddy at the Times reported that first this morning, so credit to him. But I've also learned since then that senior members of Chelsea's legal team have been in contact with their equivalents at Bayern Munich to discuss and find out exactly what it would take in terms of compensation to get Nagelsmann away and out of the contract he still has there if Chelsea decide that Nagelsmann is the man they want. And we need to stress at this stage that Chelsea haven't decided that yet. They're still researching, looking at their options, doing full due diligence on who's available and what options they've got. Among the list of men they're interested in, we've talked about a lot: Luis Enrique, Mauricio Pochettino, Ruben Amorim. And Ruben Amorim, the sporting manager, I know is of interest to people at Stamford Bridge. He's very impressed. He's impressed an awful lot of people there. He was actually in the running for the Chelsea job before Graham Potter got the job back in September. Probably an outside chance for him now, but clearly Nagelsmann is right up there at the top, and Chelsea are doing a lot of background checks on him before they decide what they're going to do.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it's progressing. I just want to pick up on one thing you said there, Rob, which kind of piqued my interest, that they'd have to speak to Bayern Munich equivalents from Chelsea, seeing as this was a man who was sacked by Bayern Munich. So why is it this a unique case that they have to talk to his former club?
It's not unique, and it's typical of football when you've got complicated contracts. In effect, Nagelsmann is on gardening leave from Bayern Munich at the moment, so technically he's still under contract with them. So he can't just go and get another job. He'd be in breach of that contract. And so my understanding is that Chelsea's lawyers want to know what the terms of that deal is. So that they can be ready to move if they want to. And if it's still within that contract period, and we don't know how long that gardening leave period is, by the way. What are the terms? We don't know. That's what Chelsea's lawyers have been trying to find out. Would they have to pay compensation if they go for Nagelsmann in the summer? They may have to. But again, it's in the finite detail of those contracts. So we wait to hear what happens on that. One other interesting thing, though, is Anthony Barry, that we've reported on Sky Sports News. One of the Chelsea coaches underneath Thomas Tuchel stayed under Graham Potter as well, but he's on gardening leave as well right now because Bayern Munich made an approach to take him. Tuchel wants him as part of his backroom staff. He could be a very useful make-weight from a Chelsea perspective if they decide to go for Nagelsmann. OK, you have Anthony Barry, and in the meantime, can we talk about Julian Nagelsmann, please? So a complicated negotiation all round, I think.
Interesting. And that kind of would suggest then that Nagelsmann, in some capacity, is still being paid by Bayern Munich, if I can say it, which means that there's not that much of a stress for him to take any opportunity that comes their way. We saw links to Tottenham as well. He can be very selective with the team that he goes for.
I think that's right, and he's made it very clear that he'd like a break to reassess his options. He's still only a young man. He's in his late 30s, so he's got a lot of time potentially as a football manager, and he wants to know that the next move for him is the right one. So he's not going to be rushing into any particular opportunity, but pretty clearly, contractually, he's not allowed to at the moment unless somebody's prepared to pay compensation. But I think what we need to stress as well is that this is something Chelsea are looking for in the future, in the summer. They have no plans to dispense with Frank Lampard right now, who's got the job until the summer, despite the disappointing start that Frank Lampard has made. And he's lost 3 out of 3, hasn't he? And scored only 1 goal in those 270 minutes. And Jasper, I wanted to talk to you about expected goals because some people in football love these stats, some people hate them. But look, this gives you an idea of how actually the expected goals under Chelsea has taken a dip since Frank Lampard took over compared with Graham Potter. If you look at that top one, look, 6.1 expected goals under Graham Potter in his last 3 games before he got sacked. Under Frank Lampard, just 2.33, so almost a third in the first 3 games he's had in charge of Chelsea in this second spell for him. The average, look, 1.39 over the whole of Potter's spell, just 0.78 expected goals per game under Frank Lampard so far. Now, there is some subjectivity in that, so we have to take it with a pinch of salt, but it's pretty clear from all of those stats that actually Chelsea are creating fewer clear goal-scoring opportunities in the 3 games under Frank Lampard than they did under the last 3 games of Graham Potter before he was sacked. So that'll be a worry for Chelsea's bosses. No suggestion that they're going to dispense with Frank Lampard. He's got the job until the summer. And no suggestion either that the poor start, or however he does, is going to damage his legacy. It was very clear, the warmth of affection from fans at Stamford Bridge when he came back for his second spell as manager on Saturday, despite that defeat to Bournemouth. But it's very clear now that how difficult a spell this is for Chelsea Football Club. It was difficult under Graham Potter. It's continued being difficult under Frank Lampard so far.